Each morning before Yom Kippur, the rabbi of Nemirov would vanish. He was nowhere to be seen, not in the synagogue, in the house of study, at Minyan, and he was not at home either. Where could he be, the community wondered? In heaven, no doubt, a place of high spiritual ascent. For a rabbi has plenty of holy matters to take care of during these days of awe. That's when a Litvak came to town, and he laughed. A rabbi who disappears to heaven? Those Litvaks, they doubt anything in the realm of belief. Instead, they adhere to a concrete understanding of Jewish law. So this Litvak referenced a piece of Talmud where it is said that even Moses does not ascend to heaven during his lifetime. So where could the rabbi be? That's not my business, proclaimed the Litvak. But of course, he was scheming to find out. So the Litvak snuck into the rabbi's home to understand where he would go first thing in the morning. After reciting all of his penitential prayers, the rabbi arose just like any one of us would. But then he went to his closet and took out a bundle of peasant clothing and a big overcoat. He got dressed and tied his coat with a rope. Finally, he fastened an axe to his rope. The Litvak shuddered, but quietly followed the rabbi as he left the house. The weight of the days of awe hung over the dark streets, and the Litvak followed the rabbi to the outskirts of town. There, the rabbi entered the woods and stopped by a small tree. Overcome with amazement, the Litvak watched the rabbi chop down the tree into logs and sticks. He bundled up the wood, tied it with his rope, and carried it on his back as he returned to town. The rabbi stopped at a tattered house where he knocked on the door, and a sick old woman answered. The rabbi insisted, in disguise, that he come in to deliver her wood for the fire. But who will kindle the fire? The woman asked. I will, said the rabbi. And as he kindled the fire for her, the room began to glow with light and warmth. And it was then with joy that he recited the morning prayers for her. Witnessing that moment, the Litvak became a disciple of the rabbi. He didn't need to see anything more. He went out to tell the story of the selfless, giving rabbi. But the townspeople doubted, saying, You mean to say that on the days before Yom Kippur, the rabbi goes to heaven? He would simply reply, Actually, even higher. Raising children, I have learned that giving is a beautiful human instinct. Young children, even my own at first, thought that the only purpose for money is tzedakah. Jewish tradition requires all of us to perform the mitzvah of giving. To be exact, it is a requirement from Torah to give 1/10 of one's livelihood to those in need. That is quite aspirational. I often wonder what it would look like to work towards a 10% giving goal. Giving one's livelihood does not only have to be money. It can be material in another form, food or clothing, or not material at all. The intention of the gift is also important. A Russian peasant once said to his friend, You know, Ivan, I've been thinking. It's really very stupid for us to pay taxes to the Tsar. Why is that, Igor? Ivan asked. Because do you know where all of our rubles come from? Well, I'll tell you where. The Tsar himself has them minted in his palace. That's where. So what? Asked Ivan. So what? So why doesn't he just keep all the rubles he needs in the first place, and we'll keep ours? Oh, Igor, you are very stupid, replied Ivan. That's the whole point. The Tsar doesn't want his rubles. He wants your rubles. When building the tabernacle in the desert, God asked the Israelites to bring a nadiv lev, a gift from the heart. Giving a gift from the heart certainly makes the gift more meaningful for the one who receives it, but it also encourages us to be intentional about giving. Maimonides defined 8 levels of giving, each one higher than the one before. The goal is to become more intentional, climbing up the ladder of giving as we age. Starting with level 8, one gives, but with hesitation, doing only what is required and frowning on it. Level 7, one gives less than one can, but does so with cheer. Level 6, one gives without being asked. To level 4, one gives, but the recipient doesn't know who the giver is. Level 2, the giver and the recipient are both unknown to each other. And level 1, the highest form of giving, is to help sustain a person in a dignified manner before they ever become impoverished or impaired. Our Yom Kippur liturgy and confession acknowledges that giving finds its root in the heart. But we know that our hearts are not always open to giving. So we tap our chests to open our hearts as we recite, Al chet shechatanu lefanecha be'imutz halev, for the ways we have wronged you by having a hard heart. Even though giving is one of our core values, we often close ourselves off to the deep human emotions of compassion, empathy, and caring that might compel us to help another person. That is when we become desensitized to those suffering around us. While it may be human nature to give, we can also become overcome by competing values, egotism, and greed. We are constantly in search of the means to fulfill our own desires. Obtaining more feels seemingly good, and we perceive it as a symbol of success. So we fall into a pattern of saving what we think will satisfy our own needs first, and then only giving what is left beyond that. We have a fear of being left with less. To put it simply, giving can hurt. Giving our hard-earned money, it hurts. Giving away something beautiful that we made with our own hands, it hurts. Giving away something that we once loved ourselves, it hurts. Giving away our personal time, it hurts. Giving our care and our attention, that can hurt too. Sometimes we imagine the pain, and sometimes we actually feel it. We might even call giving a sacrifice. But what if giving doesn't actually leave us with less? Jewish tradition actually teaches boundaries around giving. We're not supposed to give to the degree of endangering our own health. This is the value of pikuach nefesh, preserving one's being. The rabbis teach, you shall live by my statutes, not die by them. I think, for most of us, we have room to stretch, share, to give a little more. This year, as you have heard, our TBE community has refined our mission, vision, and values. In this community, may all our paths lead to shalom. But this wonderful vision won't just happen on its own. We have to create a community and a world where every person feels this shalom. From what I see, it will take each of us giving to another to feel a greater sense of peace, lending comfort and love, sending gifts, providing rides, cooking meals, completing chores, and yes, giving tzedakah. In the coming years, my hope is that our caring community team, who provides much of the support given to congregants, is not limited to a few of us, but will wholly become a caring community. Just think what it would feel like and look like if any congregant with a need is met by a congregant who can give. Giving does not have to leave us with less. Isaiah teaches, deeds of righteousness will lead to shalom, works of righteousness to calm and security forever. Scientifically speaking, research shows us that we receive real mental and physical benefits from sharing with others. Giving promotes a sense of social and human connectedness. It also activates the brain's circuits that make us feel joy and pleasure. Maybe after some self-examination this week, we sense that something is missing in our lives: joy, purpose, or meaning. Perhaps giving can be the first way that we work to fill ourselves up in this new year, especially if we can give from our hearts. This summer, I came across a blog entry written by a 16-year-old girl from New Jersey. She writes, "On an ordinary day, I arrived home from school for what I expected to be a relaxing evening, when my parents said that they had something they wanted to discuss with me. They explained to me that there was someone in the community who needed a kidney. My parents always help people in the community, so I didn't quite understand why this time we needed to have a talk. My father had made a decision. If he were a match for this community member, he would have no choice but to move forward and give one of his kidneys. I had a number of questions, but before I could ask, my father allayed some of my concerns by explaining that our bodies are capable of working with only one kidney. I still had many questions about the procedure and the recovery, but he told me that it would be a short recovery and that he would be fine. When I saw him a few hours after the surgery, he looked pretty uncomfortable. But by the next day, he was back to himself, visiting with the recipient in his hospital room. 6 weeks later, it was as if the surgery didn't happen. At school, people told me that my dad was a hero. My father has been my teacher from the day I was born. This time, he taught by example. This experience got me to thinking. Many of us will help another person when it feels easy. But how many of us respond when the need makes us uncomfortable, inconveniences us, or puts us at risk? How can we learn to reach another level of giving? My father, my teacher, and yes, my hero, has set the bar high. He challenges us to be the best we can be. This story hit me hard because it's real. There is not only one person, but 3 people in this community who are in need of a kidney. And they need this kidney to save their lives. The need is urgent. 2 of these congregants wrote me for help this summer, saying that their doctors have encouraged them to find their own donors. For on any given day in the United States, 100,000 people wait for a kidney transplant. More than 3,000 people join this list every day, and 13 die each day waiting. Those who remain alive wait an average of 3 to 5 years, a majority of them depending on a dialysis machine 3 times a week for 4 hours each time to do the work their kidneys no longer can. Our congregant, Ron Lima, knew at age 13 that he would need a kidney transplant at some point. And at the age of 27, he started dialysis, as I have described. Luckily, that year, he also met his wife, Andrea. And 4 years later, in 1997, Ron's own father, Alex, who was then 62, donated one of his kidneys to his son. He didn't hesitate to be tested as Ron's match because he couldn't stand to see his son suffer. But Ron refused for a number of years, as he was more concerned about his father than he was about himself. But as is most often the case with kidney donors, Alex is in great health with one kidney, and at 84 years old, just returned from a trip traveling the world. Studies also show that living with one kidney does not change a kidney donor's life expectancy. After a year of recovery, Ron was also back to his old self again with his new kidney, biking every day, traveling the world himself, and working out. Today, though, he says that he misses that normal life. For in 2006, Ron's health declined again. His father's kidney developed scarring, and he has been on dialysis since 2007, and also the donor list since then, too. But this go-around has been a lot harder. He became a cancer survivor. Adopted 2 beautiful babies from Guatemala, who are now 13 and 12, and has endured hospital stays months at a time. Every day of stable health is a blessing, but the need for another kidney could not be greater. A number of friends have selflessly offered to donate, but they have not matched with Ron's O blood type or tissue type. Ron has held on, saying, "If my mother can survive the Holocaust, then this is nothing." But he has aspirations. He'd love to reassure his family that he will be there for them. And he'd like to take his children to Holland to meet their cousins. Another congregant, Jerry Hamelberg, told me just on Rosh Hashanah day that he originally had no desire to tell others about his urgent need for a kidney. For can you imagine what it feels like to ask for such a big gift? But Jerry's medical team urged him to search for a donor, saying he has only months, God forbid, before his need will become even greater. Jerry's circle of family and friends has already turned up 9 people who have been willing to give, but none of them have been a match either. So I hope that you will consider being tested, to give your time to explore the possibility of being a living kidney donor. Perhaps you are a match for Ron or Jerry's type B or type O, or possibly for another congregant as well. Who knows? Maybe your willingness to give, if not for our community member, could set off a chain of donors for someone on the long national waiting list. I am excited that Ron, his doctor, and a transplant coordinator have agreed to join us for a donor information session on Sunday morning, November 3rd. More information was written in your High Holiday handout that we gave to you on Rosh Hashanah. There's information also in the bulletin and on our website as well. I hope on November 3rd that we will fill that room. And of course, you can contact me for any immediate next steps or questions as well. So what will you give this year? For each of us, it will be different. Even if it is not a kidney, each of us has the capability to give life to others. Whatever it may be, my hope is that you will reach another level of giving, perhaps moving up Maimonides' ladder. I hope you will consider giving even if it hurts. God instructed the farmer who tithed to count the herd one by one as they passed before him. The farmer let one free, one for me. And he let another one free, two for me. He continued counting 9 for himself. And then he dedicated and counted the 10th one for God. The rabbis ask, why did God have him count first? After expressing gratitude for the 9 that he could keep, the farmer is content, realizing the blessing that he already has. Although he is giving, he has already received much more. In this new year of 5,780, may giving bring us life, fulfillment, and shalom. Ken Yehi Ratzon. May this be God's will.